Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with another edition of Cigar Crew Interviews, and today we're going to be interviewing Mr. James Brown of Black Label Trading Company. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man.
So, I had a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
So, I did a little cursory research, and they say you and your wife, Angela,
Yes.
own the company. You guys started in 2013.
Correct.
It's not often that you see a husband and a wife start a cigar company. Most of the guy and the wife kind of supports them in the business or whatever. How did you both get into that?
You know, we both have just kind of always done businesses together. So ever since we've been married, we've done our own thing, and you know, cigars was just kind of the next phase of that. So she's as much of a cigar enthusiast as I am. So.
Oh, so she's a legitimate cigar smoker as well?
She is, yeah. I mean, she smokes plenty of cigars a day, and you know, and she actually is kind of the backbone of the factory, which is really cool. So yeah, there's so much that goes into making cigars that's not necessarily, you know, blending and all of that. It's all the shipping and the labels and the boxes and all the back end stuff is really where she specializes in. So it was a really good fit.
So one thing that I found, correct me if I'm wrong, when you launched back in 2013, you came out with 6 blends.
We did, yeah.
Right. So, and the reason that's important to me is that I smoke a lot of boutique cigars, right? Anytime you see, most of the time, at least in my experience, when you see a boutique line come out, they'll do 3. It'll be the same blend, and they'll do a Connecticut, Habano Maduro, or some iteration of those, right? You didn't do that.
No.
Right? What was the methodology behind what you came out with?
Well, the idea for us is we just, right out of the gate, we didn't want to be just another small brand or just another guy making a cigar. I mean, we wanted to establish a company. You know, we wanted to establish kind of more of a lifestyle brand. And so the idea was we really wanted to make a presence in the industry. And so coming right out of the gate with the 6 different blends really made a huge impact for us. You know, not only did we have a wider offering for people, but you know, it made a bigger impact in the humidor in terms of the shelf space and really getting that branding and imagery out there to kind of drive home Black Label into people's minds. So
you bring up an interesting point, right? I used to work here for about a year, and one of the things, and after such, I became a boutique cigar rep, independent cigar rep. The reason that's important is because I saw from the retail side, and I also saw from the representative side about retail space, humidor, shelf space, right? And there's a lot of companies always fighting for shelf space, and retailers all tell you that, oh, you know, I don't really have a whole lot of shelf space. I can only bring in this and bring in that. When you have 6 lines as your introductory cigars, how did that play out with a lot of retailers? Because you want them to carry the full line, right?
Right. You know, it actually worked in our favor. So a lot of the guys that we worked with early on, I mean, they got it right out of the gate. I mean, they could see, you know, easily that, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 of the facings were just going to kind of get lost in the humidor. But when you brought in the full lineup, you know, because at that time we had the black boxes, natural boxes, and white boxes, you know, all with the same imagery, they really made an impact. So, you know, and it's easy to see how that's going to translate into, you know, not only more sales for us, but more sales for them, you know. So it worked out really well because it did make that impact. It made a statement in the humidor. At that time, it was very different than anything that was really in the market. So yeah, it was a lot easier than I thought to kind of sell our vision to the retailers. They understood it and were excited about doing something different.
What is the difference between Black Label Trading Studios and Black Label Trading Company and Black Work Studio?
So the main difference is when we launched in 2013, we launched with Black Label. You know, and up until that point, until the point we decided to open our own factory and really own the process for ourselves. At that point is when we decided to launch another brand. So I had been playing with a lot of cigar ideas that didn't necessarily fit the mold for Black Label. And so the idea of launching another brand was kind of getting kicked around, and I wanted it to be something that was, more geared towards cigar enthusiasts in terms of the vitola sizes. And I wanted it to be a brand that kind of highlighted the artisanal qualities of cigar making that was coming out of our factory. So that's when we developed things like the Green Hornet and the Killer Bee, with those decorative aspects to them. It's a more of a, although Black Label is of course boutique and small batch, Black Works is even more so. So everything is produced in very small 100-box batches.
Got it.
So it's kind of the boutique inside the boutique. We just wanted something, for lack of better description, I would say Black Label is a little bit more of a mainstream boutique brand, whereas Black Works is a little more focused on hardcore cigar enthusiasts that want something really different.
So Black Label is the overarching company, so to speak, and Black Work Studios operates within that?
We treat it as pretty much two separate brands.
Okay, two separate brands.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot of, I would say the majority of our retailers do well with both and have both. We do have some retailers that just do Black Work Studios, and we have some that just do Black Label, depending on what the clientele is. Now,
you mentioned the Green Hornet. I think I've had 5 of your cigars, right? Green Hornet I had a few months ago. It was intriguing because it had like a candela foot on it, right? And one thing I noticed whenever I smoke a cigar that has any type of a different wrapper on the foot, there's an immediate flavor transition after that burns off, right? But you still get a little bit of it after, because correct me if I'm wrong, there's a little bit of candela, like a strip wrapped around the cap, around the head, right? Okay, so you still taste a little bit of that grassiness on there as well.
Yeah, what we wanted to do with that cigar was, we wanted, exactly like you explained it, we wanted it to just have a hint of candela, not to overpower the cigar. And the linear cap on it, a lot of people think we just kind of glue a stripe around it, but it's actually 2 layers. So we have the first layer is candela, and then the Maduro layer is actually laid over it, offset. And so when it gets wrapped around, it creates that green spiral. So there is a significant amount of candela still on that cap,
so
which is why you get that flavor from it.
So it's like a candela head with Maduro wrapped around it.
Exactly.
So you just had IPCPR changed its name to PCA. Did you launch anything new?
We did, yeah. So this was a big year for us, because not only do we have our brands, Black Label and Black Works, but we've also taken over Emilio cigars as well.
Oh yeah, I've had some Emilio cigars.
So, for a while Emilio was kind of a brand without a real identity, and so we've taken that over and rebranded everything. We've taken all of the production in-house into our own factory. So we were launching a lot of cool new stuff with that brand. Also, Dissident Cigars has just come on board, so the owner of that is Ben Holt, also being produced out of our factory, so we were featuring that. And for our brands, for Black Label, we had a new IPCPR exclusive called The Last Rites Viaticum, which is only available to IPCPR attendees, so that's going to be coming out. And yeah, we have a couple of new event-only cigars that we launched as well.
Okay, so about how many, roughly, but how many shops are you in nationwide?
I think last that I looked, we're close to 300.
Close to 300?
Yeah.
So what is what's your, would you say is a rough number of like your annual production of cigars?
It varies. I would say on average right now our factory produces about 65,000 a month.
Okay, so way less than a million. So you are still truly boutique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have a number that you're trying to attain, or are you happy with your production?
Yeah,
right
I mean,
now?
For the production that we do, with the tobacco that we use, it's very limited in the quantity that it's produced, and so we kind of have to set our limitations according to that. So yeah, I mean, we have our plateau number and we know what that is, and that's going to be kind of our comfortable spot. And it's one of those things, when you operate a factory like we do and make cigars like we do, when you hit that plateau, if you go over it, you're either going to sacrifice quality for quantity. So we know what our plateau is, and it's a comfortable level for us. So that's what we're striving for. And I would imagine we're going to hit that probably within the next 2 years.
Okay. So the thing that I always like to ask people is what made you want to get into the cigar business?
I kind of came into it from a different angle than most people. So I had no exposure or experience on the U.S. side. You know, I'd never worked in a cigar store. I didn't know anyone who did. I didn't know anyone in the industry. I was just a consumer. And my wife and I were living in Latin America at the time and got to spend a lot of time in Nicaragua.
Oh, okay.
And so as a cigar smoker, you know, I wanted to see the whole process, you know, and so I spent as much time as I could in SLE and met people on that side of the industry and really fell in love with cigar making and that entire process. And that's kind of what drove me to do it. But really, I mean, it was almost like a, you know, here, hold my beer moment, where it was kind of like, well, I think we can do this. And everybody I knew said, not a good idea, you know, and we were just kind of like, well, we're going to give it a go, and if it works out, it works out. And, you know, and we were really lucky to early on kind of get this great cult following almost for the product. You know, people were really seeking it out, and that opened the eyes of a lot of retailers. And so it's just slowly been growing from that, you know, and we keep it still to this day. It grows very organically. You know, we don't do any advertising. We don't do any type of promotion like that. It's all consumer driven growth, which is awesome. What I was finding is that I felt like the selections that were available to me were a little monotonous. And so as I spent time in Nicaragua, you know, it was very clear early on and easy to see that this could be done differently. You know what I mean? There's a lot of room here to do something different and put out a product that's going to be unique and kind of fill a niche that I felt was missing in the cigar market at the time. So that was kind of my idea, and my goal was to just come out and do something what I would consider totally different.
So I've talked to a lot of different people who, like from brand owners, people who, you know, they blend their cigars like yourself, people who grow tobacco and make their own cigars. Everybody has a different modus operandi, so to speak, of how they come up with blends. You know, I was talking to these other two guys who own this company, and they said that, oh, you know, we created all these cigars that me and my partner like, and we just let them sit up, and we figured that, you know, somebody else would like them. But how do you go about creating your blends? Like, do you have the consumer in mind, or do you create something that's like, you know what, I think this is really good, or it'll be differentiated in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we always strive to create something different. You know, we want to do something unique, and so a lot of times, you know, I kind of have to reel things back a little bit and think about it from more of a mass market standpoint. You know, I'm kind of a bigger, bolder, the better cigar smoker, and you know, sometimes that's not necessarily the best option for selling cigars. So yeah, we kind of just let, you know, each idea kind of grow on its own. Sometimes the idea is sparked by a particular type of tobacco that I know I want to use it, so I want to create a blend around that tobacco to kind of highlight it. Or the idea is, you know, comes from a branding idea. You know, I know I want to use this name and this branding. What is the cigar that's going to make sense with that? You know, so we kind of come at it from a lot of different angles. But yeah, I would say we definitely, I create cigars that I like first, and then, you know, then we take into consideration
the
consumers. Yeah, what are they going to respond to? And honestly, I've been really surprised with a lot of the responses that we've gotten for certain cigars that aren't necessarily in our traditional wheelhouse, where our consumers have really fallen in love with those cigars and latched onto them.
Like what? Like specifically?
Well, you know, we got questioned a lot early on if we were ever going to make a Connecticut, you know, and it was just kind of never my thing. You know, I was like, well, you know, it's not really my thing. I haven't had time to really even think about it. And so over time, I started playing with a lot of different blends, you know, and wanted to create a Connecticut for black label smokers, you know. And so I think we accomplished that. We did the Deliverance Porcelain as a limited release last year. But anytime we put something out that's, you know, not kind of in our normal wheelhouse, I get a little nervous about it. You know, how are our consumers going to respond to it? You know, is it going to be something they like? And the response to that cigar was just unbelievable. I mean, it was, people were more excited about that release than any of the others last year.
And that's here at Burners, right?
All over the place.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the cigar just did great everywhere. So it was very cool to see that, you know, even doing something that's not what we would consider a traditional Black Label or Blackworks cigar was really well received by our consumers.
Now, when you blend cigars, do you go inside out or outside in? Meaning, do you start with a wrapper and it's like, okay, let me come up with a blend that I want to complement this wrapper, or do you start with a blend and say, okay, now let me find a wrapper to complement the blend?
I would say it goes both ways. I would say 99% of the time it's usually start with the filler tobaccos and come up with a blend and then figure out the wrapper from that point. But in certain instances, like with our Deliverance Nocturne, that cigar kind of came about because I knew I wanted to do something with Pennsylvania Broadleaf.
Okay.
It was one of my favorite wrappers. So I decided, you know, I want to make a cigar that's almost a tribute to Pennsylvania Broadleaf. So in that cigar, we actually use it as the wrapper, and we also take some of that wrapper leaf and process it into filler tobacco and use it in the filler as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that whole idea for that cigar kind of sparked from wanting to use that wrapper.
Okay. So today, you about to do a blending session, right?
Yes.
What cigar are we using? The MBK, right?
The MBK, yeah.
Okay. So, not to spoil it, but what are some things that you're going to hit on about during this blending session? What's some points you're going to kind of cover?
You know, I like to do the blending session because it's kind of a really quick crash course into, you know, these unique tobaccos from Nicaragua. I think the coolest thing about the blending session is we're going to be doing tobacco from Ometepe, from Esteli, and from Jalapa.
I love Jalapa
and essentially you're dealing with the same strain of plant, just grown in a completely different environment. And so I think it's really cool to see the environmental effect on tobacco and what the finished product is like due to the environment that it's grown in. And you know, I like to do the MBK because it's what I would consider a very simple blend. It's only 3 tobaccos, but it just goes to show you that sometimes less is more. And those 3 tobaccos together can create a really unique and complex cigar.
Okay, well, great. So, guys, we're about to go get into this blending session with Mr. James Brown here, and I'm going to learn some things. So, sir, I thank you very much for your time. This is another edition of Cigar Crew Interviews with Blackworks Studios.